Final Japan U20 team in Blue Lock is probably the most important team we will ever see in the whole series. It's one of the biggest reasons why the Neo Egoist League was made in the first place. You need to have a strong overall team to go against all these world-class talents in the World Cup. So there's no question saying this is going to be the most important decision in Blue Lock. It's confirmed there's going to be 23 spots, and we don't know for sure if we're getting a World Cup after the U20, so this might actually be the last team we see in Blue Lock. That means no new characters, everyone's set in stone, that's all.
That's all.
I just had to put that clip in. Anyways, we know that the people who are making those 23 spots are basically numbers 1 through 3 when it comes to salary ranking in the NEL. So this could pretty much be a top 23 salary ranking video, but saying Final Japan team is cooler. It's a video on pretty much both. Remember, this is all a prediction. I don't got that future vision. In fact, I got that Yuki vision. It's hard to even see the script right now, but the point is, this is just a theory or discussion. Everyone has their opinion, so I want y'all to leave who you think will make it into the top 23 or just the starting 11 or whatever. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 23 or last place, realistically speaking, it's Igaguri. Monk is an essential character to Blue Lock, the bacon to the eggs, the yin to the yang. If he's not making it, it's not Blue Lock. But again, realistically speaking, he has one game to get a high enough salary to make it on the Japan U20 team. And it doesn't really seem plausible, but he has the weapon of plot armor, so he can make it somehow. I've been saying Igaguri is gonna get a foul, some bigwig is gonna think it's funny and give him a high enough salary to make it into the top 20. But I personally would just want him here instead of some no-name character or the old Japan U20 team. If he doesn't make it, I guess it shows how serious the World Cup arc is going to be, but I still think they need that comedy relief. We did salary rankings on stream, and we assumed it would be around 50 to 60 million for the cutoff, and you should also join those streams every Friday from 10 to 11 a.m. PST, always streaming the new chapter and anything Blue Lock. Igaguri being here is mostly just comedy relief. I can't think of an actual explanation as to why he would make the team. I guess he can foul someone, I don't really know. Alright, now from the 50 to 100 million mark, I'm going to start grouping these guys together, but it's going to be Fukaku Gen, the U20 goalkeeper, Atoya, Aru, Raichi, Nico, Hiyori, and Corona. Taking spots 22 to 16, it's going to be these 7, with the U20 goalkeeper being number 22 and Corona being number 16. So the U20 goalkeeper is pretty obvious. They need a substitute goalkeeper. Atoya is kind of trash, but he's been pretty relevant since the 3rd selection, so I personally think he's making it due to plot reasons. He hasn't done anything in the Barchi game or even the U20 game, getting subbed off for Barou, so that's why he's low in salary. But I think they'll keep him around, otherwise they would have just never gave him a salary in the first place, or have him currently ranked at 15th for doing a whole lot of nothing. Ryu, while good, just doesn't have anything to help him stick out to have a high salary, but he's an essential part of the Japan U20 as a defender, so he's 100% gonna make it. Raichi's currently going through some development, and although he didn't stop Stuffy fully, he was acknowledged by him, and the marking skills he does have is super helpful in my opinion, and can be used to mark aces in the Cup arc. For Nico, although he has metavision, he hasn't done anything too prominent compared to other defenders like Aiku, but the same argument as Ryu, he's just an essential part of the Japan U20 team as a defender, and metavision on defense is a must, so Nico at 18. Hiyori, while I think he has the most potential out of all the ones I've mentioned, he's only played in the Ubers game and will probably play in the PXG game, so that gives him only 2 times for him to get a higher salary over someone like Corona who has played 3 games. So although I think Hiyori is better than Corona, don't flame me Corona lovers, I think Corona will still have a higher salary due to him playing 3 games and also just being a super noteworthy support with Planet Hotline, moving the ball up fast, and fast turns. Besides maybe Nico and Hiyori, I don't really see these guys as part of the starting 11 team, so that's why they're a little lower, but they can always be subbed in or put in different formations depending on who they're going against. For example, they could put Raichi against someone they need to mark, Corona if they're playing really fast, Ryu if they need to win a height battle, and Atoya if you want to throw the game. I'm really on the Atoya hate train. I shouldn't be that much, honestly, but you guys know why. By the way, I'm not guessing exact salaries, that's why it's more of a top 23 more than a salary ranking video. This video would be like an hour long, but it is put in terms of lowest to highest salaries. Alright, at the 100 to 150 million mark, taking spots number 15 to 13, I got Tokimitsu, Yukimiya, and Zantetsu. Alright, now we can start discussing feats and stuff since it's a little bit more of a debate between these guys. I'm really ranking Tokimitsu and Zantetsu purely off potential. Hell, they could not even live up to the hype and be way lower in the rankings. But just off their potential alone, I'm putting them up here. Tokimitsu is one of the biggest what-ifs in Blue Lock. A full confidence Tokimitsu with his weapons just sounds super dangerous. I've been saying he could pretty much replicate Adam Blake's playstyle that we saw in the World 5 game, the same one that pushed him over because his weapons is the exact same. Stamina and physique while also being fast. We could just see him drill through teams and taking the ball upfield like a madman. I imagine that would be super hyped to see our underrated boy pop off. Yukimiya is next at the number 14 spot, and Yukimiya, he's just good. I think everyone has that opinion on him. He's not terrible, but he's also no Isagi, so he shouldn't be acting like the MC. Being good at 1v1s, dribbling, and gyro shots are good, but he hasn't really made any individual plays like all the other people rated higher than him have. In fact, he's kind of like Kunigami in getting the goal from Isagi, but at least he acknowledged it. And even though Zantetsu has less plays, let's just look at Barou's potential, because he's like a shining star in first grade by joining PXG. He has his own like Chigiri, and I still think these two will be rivals later on in the series, since they're so similar, and he also got developed a lot in episode Nagi. So we need to see him have a good shot at his dream. The reason why I ranked him really high is because if he does play in PXG, which I'm hoping he does, that means he has 3 games to get a salary. That's plenty enough games to get an 100 million salary with his skills, and I expect him to score some goals, maybe against some other teams like Manshine, since they do have Chigiri, and I think he deserves to be at the 100 to 150 million mark. I feel like the 3 characters here and the role they play in the 20 team is to be a mix-up. Like, I'd still take Chigiri over Zantetsu, but he's a perfect mix-up to have if you need him to sub in or need his acceleration for a wrestling play. Alright, now we're in the debate for players who are going to be making the lineup. So remember, I'm going to be ranking them in order of salaries to see who's the top 23 and just straight up making the team. The whole point of this video is to see who's making the final roster, the characters we will see moving forward, not really a starting 11, and I'll go over the characters that didn't make it at the end of the video. Now, this is going to be the first 25 increment, 150 to 175 million. Spots 12 through 10, it's going to be Karasu, Ryo, and Gagamaru. These are pretty big salaries, but none of these guys are just strikers or just goal scorers, so they obviously won't have as big as a salary as the others who are scoring goals, since we know that more goals equals a higher salary. Pretty self-explanatory, honestly, but I think these guys are perfect here. People value good midfielders like Karasu and Ryo, and they both have weapons or things that help them stick out from other midfielders. Ryo a bit more with copy and confirmed meta vision, so going above Karasu in my opinion, but Karasu is also still up for debate since we still need to see him get developed in PXG, and maybe we'll get to see him use meta vision in tandem with analysis skills to get ahead of the curve. Ryo is nuts. He can copy Itoshi, Sai, and Rin. He has defensive, offensive, and midfielder feats. And honestly, I would put him higher, but for plot reasons, the strikers are obviously going to be higher. Gagamaru, yeah, no explanation here. Even though he is a goalkeeper, he's the most irreplaceable character on this list. And because he is the best at his job, he's obviously going to get a high salary deserving of that number 10 spot. No need to explain anymore. All these characters here are essentials to creating a solid team with good synergy. Literally, without Gagamaru, we'd be left with this guy, so an absolute necessity. From 175 to 250 million, numbers 9 through 5, I'm hesitating to say my answer here a little bit, but it's going to be Aiku, Chigiri, Kunigami, Bachara, and Isagi. Alright, I'm definitely going to get flamed for this. I'm so getting flamed, but hear me out here. I think that the Egoist 4 scale pretty relatively to each other. I think they're all going to improve and have their pop-off moments together. Even though it seems like Isagi is levels above them, and which I do agree with, by the way, I think it makes more sense if he doesn't have a super high salary. It is a popular theory that Isagi is going to have a 300 million salary alongside Kaiser. One that has evidence and one I do agree with. I see it as a possibility, but I also see the other one as a possibility as well. We're going in reverse order, but Isagi currently only has a 50 million value, and Barou, who has played less games than Isagi, who scored a hat-trick against Barca, got 100 million. A hat-trick, 3 goals, and only 100 million. So Isagi literally needs to be scoring at least 2 more goals in PXG and Ubers, which is not likely but not impossible. I think he'll score once against PXG, but I'm not so sure about the Ubers. He already scored once, and I doubt that would be on track to get 300 million. It just makes more sense for Isagi to be chasing these rivals like Kaiser, who actually has the 300 million value. So it is more satisfying to see him beat him later on in the World Cup arc. It's the same formula we've seen in past Blue Lock arcs, like the first selection with Barou and then beating him in the second selection, losing to Rin in second selection and then being on the same level as him, and arc after in the U20 game. And again, I think the Egoist 4 scale relatively to each other. We still have Kunigami's development, which needs to be absolutely game-changing to go against a stacked PXG team, so it makes sense that they're relative. Bachara is just cracked. He solos team, scored against a stacked defensive team in the Ubers. He has 2 goals currently and has played in every single match, so no doubt he's going to have a high salary. He's also ranked currently at 3rd with 66 million and has 2 more matches to play, so I think he's well within the 200 million range. Still in reverse order, I'm putting Kunigami above Chigiri, and even though he hasn't proved himself, he's still getting pretty high salaries and is also scoring goals. Like I said a second ago, Kunigami's development is also going to be massive. I expect him to pretty much carry against PXG, marking Shido, scoring goals, dribbling past them and whatnot, maybe even teaming up with Isagi. Kunigami needs to do a lot against PXG to get this value, and I personally think he will, so that's why I put him up here. Gary arguably is the worst out of the Egoist 4 besides current Kunigami, and he has the lowest out of them currently as well. He's still a strong player, essential blue lock player to the plot as well. 44 snipe buff also helps him have a starting spot along the left side, whether that means being a winger or full fullback. And finally, Aiku is the best defender in Blue Lock. Even though he isn't scoring goals, his defensive feats and the fact that he literally gaps all the other defenders in Blue Lock as well just makes him even more dominant and worthy of a high salary. Division, blocking and reading Isagi twice in the Ubers match, and then his stellar U20 performance, which obviously doesn't play a role here, but I still gotta mention it because it shows his capabilities. Now, all these characters are deserving of that above 175 million mark. I would honestly say they're above at least 200. Alright, we're finally here at the top 4. This is going to be the 250 to 300 million mark. I think I'm going to give my exact salary rankings at this point. It would definitely be easier, and there's only 4 of them. Coming in at number 4, I'm going to be putting Shido Ryusei with the 250 million value.
Shido will always be a top contender when it comes to the best players in Blue Lock, just because of his insane scoring capability.
Know that scoring goals equals a higher salary, which is why I placed him really high up here, and he's only played 1 game, scoring 1 goal already, and unfortunately that gave him a measly 20 million. But again, I think for the first rankings, everything was just a little messed up. We're gonna see him perform super well against NEL level players, and the match against him and Kunigami is bound to get viewers and people actually giving out the salaries a beautiful showcase of both their skills. We also have the fact that he will develop in PXG just like all the other guys, so seeing how he will develop even further than he already is will be an absolute treat to watch. The game's not even gonna start and Shido's gonna somehow score 3 goals. I like putting Shido at the spot because I think it just genuinely makes the most sense, because Rin is on the same team as him and they're both gonna be fighting for the spotlight, so not only one person sticks out for the team. Compared to someone like Nagi, who is undoubtedly the ace of Manshine, so his performance seems better because he's not competing against Itoshi Rin to perform the best on his team. Speaking of Nagi though, number 3 is going to be Nagi Seishiro with a 260 million value.
We know Nagi is going to be going for that top spot or 300 million value with Ryo's help. It was discussed way back in chapter 207, so him getting a super high value just makes sense. And he's absolutely capable of doing it. I think the fact that he got 88 million as his first salary and just off of 1 goal just shows that he's able to pull it off, if not get super close.
Not too sure about him getting 300 million though, so that's why I put it at 260 million. Nagi is still a little lazy, and 300 million is on the same level as New Gen 11 pretty. Nagi with his trapping skills just adds an absolute weapon to the team that can either reset the game's tempo or be used to help him score goals or make insane plays, which we've all already seen. Might be wondering why I put him above Shido. It's the same argument as earlier where he is obviously gonna have the spotlight on him during Manshine, and Shido has to go against all the PXG boys, specifically Rin. Number 2 and number 1 are players I haven't mentioned yet, and you probably already know, but who's number 2 and who's number 1? I'm putting at number 2 with a salary of 275 million, I'm putting Itoshi Rin. I'm the biggest Rin glazer. I think I make it obvious in a lot of my videos, but it makes sense why he's rated so high. I think he's on the same level as Ryo when it comes to being an all-rounder, if not even better on top of his kick accuracy, and his brain and eyes rival Isagi's while also having an insane scoring ability. You guys already know his feats, let's discuss how he'll get the salary. Scoring 2 goals already against the most stacked defensive team in the league just shows how good his scoring capability is, so he'll 100% score more goals against other teams and do way more than just score goals, which puts him above people like Shido and Nagi, since he can use his brain like Isagi, which has given him a 50 million value without even scoring a goal. Rin, I think, will always be a rival for Isagi, or at least equals. I currently don't see a way how Isagi will surpass Rin, even with his advanced metavision. So Rin coming in at number 2. Okay, number 1, the person who I believe will have the highest salary ranking at the end of the NEL, Barou Shoei. I really think this arc revolves around 3 main characters: Isagi, Kunigami, and Barou. Of course, everyone else does get development and stuff, but we haven't seen anyone improve as much as these 3, and Barou especially. Getting his revenge, learning Predator's Eye, and a hat trick in the first game, and 2 goals, maybe 3 in the current game. Like Barou said, NEL is where he's gonna shine, the golden child, because 5 goals out of 6 is actually crazy against NEL level players. Not even Kaiser has done that. I don't think anyone else besides Barou can pull this off. He took over a whole ass team for God's sake. So I think Barou will have the highest salary out of everyone in the NEL with a 300 million ranking. It's also a way to keep him as Isagi's rival and equal for the rest of the series. I think the top 4 just provide absolute weapons for the Japan U20 that'll help score goals. It's kind of obvious what their roles are. Their roles is to just be themselves. Like, seriously, they're all units when it comes to scoring or being cracked at the game. Now, unluckily, with there only being 23 spots, that means some characters are going to be cut off from the roster. Most notable characters cut out are probably the U20 boys, specifically Sendo. I would put Sendo over Igaguri as a player. I think we all agree on that. But both of them are comedy relief, and Igaguri got that plot armor. Otherwise, he would have been eliminated off in the 2nd selection. Honestly, as a player we saw in the 3rd selection play with Isagi and Hiyori, I think he'll be cut out too. I just see no way he would shine in PXG with all their talent, and also just him having a high enough salary with his low tier skills. Yeah, they never had a chance. Honestly speaking, these 23 players I'm happy with. I'm kind of sad we won't get to see Kiora, and Aiku will also be split up from his squad, which is kind of sad. Maybe we'll get to see some of the U20 boys make it through though. I mean, they do have salaries right now, and if that's the case, some of the 23 I've mentioned, who are pretty pretty important to the plot might get cut out to include them, so the team is really hard to know. And I would make a starting 11, but I think I'm gonna save that vid for another time, otherwise this video would be way too long.
But these are the 23 players who I think will make it into the Japan U20 team and be the final characters we'll see in Blue Lock for the rest of the series.
This video was really fun to make. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to hit the like button. Let me know who you think is gonna make it or not make it, or just your predictions on who will make it in general. My name's Hiryo. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next one.